We begin today the Gemara on Daf Lamed Amud Aleph, right at the beginning, the first line of the Amud. The Gemara quotes what it says in the Mishnah when a person finds a garment, and if he leaves it just in the drawer for all the time, it's going to get ruined, it could get moldy, it's not going to be in good condition. So in order to keep it for the owner, he has to once in a while spread it out. So the Mishnah says, Sheitcha letzarcha. So once in a while, he spreads it out for the sake of keeping the garment in good condition. But he can't use it to spread it out for his own honor. He wants to beautify his house with this garment. The Shaila was asked about what it said in the Mishnah. How about litzarchai ulitzarcha? Mai. If he's spreading it out, it's for the sake of the garment, it needs this, but he's also benefiting from it while he's at it. He uses it for something, it beautifies his house in one way or another. Is it allowed to do both of them at the same time? That's a shaila here. So the Rishonim discuss, Taisvis here, and others discuss that l'chayra there's no room for the Gemara to even ask such a question, because the Mishnah itself discussed this regarding Sfarim. Before in the Mishnah of Chav Test, when it said a person has also the Sfarim and he has to open it up every once in a while to air it out, it said there he can read in the Sfarim when he opens it up. So it seems like he's airing it out, but he could also read from it. So Taisva says that no, that's a different thing, because there the Mishnah gave a specific time. That he could do it only once in 30 days or maybe once in 12 months. So since it gave a specific time, so we're not afraid that the person is just going to use it for himself and then end up ruining it. And similar to Kli Kesav, Kli Nechoshes, we'll see later in the Gemara, you're allowed to use it for different things. Over there, it doesn't ruin it. The main point of the Gemara's question over here is that you're using it litzarchai, both for the need of this garment itself, and you're also having a benefit from it, and there's no time frame to this. So there's a concern that you might end up ruining it. That's the shaila. Is it allowed? Tashema. So the Gemara brings a raya, and then from the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Sheitcha litzarcha. You spread it out, you air it out for its sake. So it says the Gemara, litzarcha in, only for its own sake. But if you're doing it including also for you, that you want to have a purpose, some purpose of this, even if it's also for the sake of this garment, you're not allowed. So from the ratio of the Mishnah, you see that it has to be dafka litzarcha for the sake of this garment. But what does it say in the next part of the Mishnah? You're not allowed to spread it out if you're using it for your honor. So from here, from this expression of the Mishnah, I would say, if you're doing it just for your honor, then you're not allowed. But if what you're doing is not just for your honor, it's also for the sake of the garment, then you are allowed. So the Reisha and Seifa both imply two opposite things regarding the Shaila. So therefore the Gemara concludes, Ella meha lekala mishma. From the Mishnah, you can't be medayik to resolve this Shaila, because the Mishnah has two opposite mashmos, so there's no raya here. Toshema, the Gemara says, let's bring a raya from the following brayse. It says, La yishtechena al gabi mita. You have these garments that you found, don't spread it out on a bed or on a couch. V'lo al gabi mogoid, not on a hook or on a nail that you put it on. Litzarchai, if this is being done for your own sake. Aval yishtechena al gabi mita v'al gabi mogoid, but you can spread it out on a bed or on a hook. Litzarcha, if it's for the sake of the garment, to air it out. If you have guests, so then don't spread it out on a bed or on a hook. Whether it's being done for your own sake, for the sake of the using it, you have guests and they can sit and use it, you shouldn't spread it out at all. So what do you see here in this braisa? It says here when you have guests, and you want to spread it out for the sake of the garment itself, it needs to be aired out. But it's also going to be used by your guests, so you can't spread it out in a time when it's going to be both for the sake of the garment and for the sake of you using it for your guests. So you see here clearly that if it's for both together, you can't spread it out this way. It says the Gemara, no, it's not a raya from there, because when you have guests, it's different. Shani Hassam, that case is different. The mikla kolila. Spreading it out when you have guests, it's like burning this garment. You're ruining the garment for sure. Either it's because of the ayin hara, the people come and they see, and the bad eye can bring it to get destroyed. Or guests that come into your home, you don't know who they are, and they may steal it. So in that case, there's definitely a concern, and you're not allowed to spread it out. But our question still remains: a person in his own house, whether he's allowed to spread it out. So the Gemara here brings a raya from a completely different halacha, where you see a person is doing something for two purposes. And here we're going to discuss the halacha of the egla arufa. The halacha of the egla arufa is that's used when a dead body is found and you can't identify who the murderer is. You have to bring a calf and then chop off its head. And so this egla arufa that's used for this cannot be an animal, a calf that did any work. Okay, so now this Mishnah here says, "Ichnisa tashama ichnisa l'revoka." You took a calf and you put it inside the group in the yoke together with the other calves, and vidasha, and it went and it threshed together with the other animals. So that wasn't your intention. You put it together with the other calves in the yoke in order for it to be together to nurse from the mother. That was the main purpose. But while the other ones were walking, it also went to walk along and threshed. Ksheira. It's still kosher to be used for egla arufa, even though it did work. As I mentioned, that once it does work, ashalei ubadba, we'll see soon the pasuk, it only if it didn't do work, it could be used. But over here, though, that wasn't your intention, B'chlal. But if you put this calf into the yoke together with the other animals, and you had in mind that it should be there together with the others to nurse from the mother, and also it's going to do the threshing together with the other animals, both, then psula, then it's going to be puzzle. Because your intention was for the sake of the animal itself, that it should nurse, but your intention also was that it should walk along with the other animals and do the threshing. Says the Gemara, what do we see from here? Here we see that you put it together with the rest of the animals for both, for the sake of the threshing and also for the sake of the animal itself, that it should be able to nurse. The katani psula, and it says there that when it's for two different purposes at the same time, it becomes possible. So if so, we can apply and say the same thing over here regarding how a person has to treat an aveda that he has from his friend, that if you're using it for both, for yourself and for the sake of the aveda at the same time, you're not allowed. It's interesting how the Gemara brings this raya here from a din that's min ha-Torah, and seemingly the shaila before was all regarding a chashash midrabanan, whether you may come to use it and ruin it. But the Gemara compares these two things. It looks like, at this point at least, it looks like the Gemara is thinking that in our case regarding the aveda, you could also say that you're not allowed to spread it out, and it would be a issa min ha-Torah, similar to that case where you're using it for two purposes at the same time. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. So the Gemara answers and says you can't compare to there. Shani Osam, in that case where it says that if you're bringing it in together with the rest of the calves and you have two things in mind, over there the reason why it becomes possible is the Amakra, because the pasuk says Asher loy ubadba, that this is a calf that was not worked with, work was not done with it, Mikol Makim. So that's in any way, meaning even if it was put in there for the purpose that it should nurse and do work, but it's still loy ubadba. It already did work, and therefore you can't use it. So over there's a specific pasuk that says this, but in our case, not necessarily could you apply the same thing. But if that's the case, so apply the same thing in the first case, where you put this calf there together with the other animals just to nurse from its mother. But then it walked along and did the threshing. So ubadba, the fact is it did work, so it should become possible as well. Why in the Reisha, when he put the animal there just for the purpose of nursing from its mother, is it still kosher to be used for egla rufa? So the Gemara says, no, the answer is, we could compare the distinction that this Braisa here says to what we learned in another place in a Mishnah. So the Mishnah says that this is a Mishnah actually that talks about paraduma. So regarding paraduma, there's another halacha, similar halacha, but even more. You're not allowed to have anything, any yoke, anything that this animal ever carried on it. So therefore the Mishnah there by paraduma says, what happens if a bird just lands on top of this, just goes on top of this paraduma? Ksheira, it's still going to be kosher, because it just went on it, and you didn't even want it to go onto the animal. It just went on by its own. That doesn't passel it. Allah allow zachar psula. If a male comes on this paraduma, which is in a keva, it mates together with this paraduma, so then it'll be passel. So over there we see this distinction, whether it just comes on it, whether a bird lands on it, or a zachar mates with this nekeva. What's the reason for this difference? My time, what's the basis for this distinction? Could Rav Papa? Rav Papa explained this. Rav Papa says, and Rav Papa learns this out actually from the pasuk that it says by Egla Rufa. What does it say by Egla Rufa? The pasuk we quoted, that it says Asher loy ubad bo, and that there has to be a calf that work was not done with it. Now this term of ubad doesn't mean, it's not using a term ovad, that you did not do. It says the work was not done with it. Right? But here there's going to be the kri and the ksiv. It's written without a vav, so you can read it as ovad, that you did not do. But the way you pronounce it though is ubad, as if it's written with a vav, that work was not done with it. And therefore the Papa says like this: iksiv ubad. If the pasuk would have written ubad with that vav, the karin and ubad, we would read it as it's spelled, ubad with a vav. So then the word ubad means work was not done with it, which indicates, havamin, I would say, afilim memela. Any kind of work, even if it happens without you being interested, it just happens automatically, then it would passel it for being used for egla rufa. That's if it would be written with a vav. On the other hand, v'iksiv avad, if the pasuk would be written without a vav, and it would say avad, that you did not do work with it, and v'karin and avad, and we would read it as avad, then havamina, I would say ad avad ba'iu, that it only becomes passel if you went and directly did actual work with it, intentionally. With your hands, you went and did work with it. But now, what does it say here? We have the kri and the ksiv. The ksiv, avad. In the pasuk, it's written just ayin veis dalad, which could be read as avad. And the karinon, ubad. But then the way it's supposed to be read is as if it says it with a vav, as if it's uvad. So therefore what we say is, be'inon uvad dumye the avad. In order to passel this animal, so it has to be some kind of work that was done with it, not necessarily that you physically did it, but it's work that was done with this animal, similar to the nature of the work if you would have done it directly with your hands. And what does that mean? Ma avad enichale. Just like if you're doing the work with your hands with this animal, what that means is that you're interested, you're happy and interested in this work that's being done with it. Af uvad enichale. Uvad in this pasuk means is, even if it's something that happened on its own, but it's something that you're interested in, so then that will passel this animal. So therefore we say this regarding the paraduma, that if a bird just lands in it and you're not even interested in that bird being on the animal, it doesn't passel it. But if it's a case where there's a zachar that mated with this nekeva, that's something that you're happy and interested in, it could give birth. And similar benegayet to the threshing regarding the egla rufa, that if you put it in there just to nurse with the rest of the animals, and then the other animals just schlepped it along to go and do the threshing, you don't even need this animal for the threshing. So then it won't passel it. But if you need it for the threshing, and you're doing it both for the purpose of nursing with his mother, and also you can use the threshing, you're happy that it's doing the threshing, so then it's going to passel it. That's the explanation of the two halachas that it says by Egla Rufa and by Paraduma. But the Gemara doesn't resolve the ibaya that we had before regarding the tzarcha and the tzarcha. Doesn't answer that. The next case it said in the Mishnah was kli kesef, kli nechoshes. You have an aveda, silverware or copper. B'shtamish ben v'chulu, you can use it, and you use it for the sake of the silverware itself and the copper, that it shouldn't get ruined. If you just leave it, it can get tarnished, and then it's very hard to clean. We learned about this. If a person finds wooden kalim, mishtamish ben, you should use it. If you just leave it sitting, it could be somewhere in some moist, damp area, it can get deteriorated. You find copper kalim, mishtamish ben b'chamin, you use it even in hot water. And cold for sure, but even in hot water, it shouldn't be used in cooking and fire, because it can erode the material, the condition of the keli. If you have silverware, this could only be used in cold water. Not in hot water, causes it to become tarnished. You found rakes or axes. You can use it for something which is soft, which won't ruin it. Not something that's tough and a hard substance which will ruin it. It's going to deteriorate it. You find gold kalim or glass kalim, lo yiga behen, so then you put it away and don't touch it, because if you touch it, it's very delicate, it can break, it can get ruined. Until Eliyahu comes. And the Brisa says, Kederech she'omru ba'aveda, similar to all these halachas we said regarding a lost item that you're keeping for someone, kachomru b'pikadon. Similar is also regarding a pikadon. So the Gemara says, Pikadain mai avidite gabe. A pikadain, why would a person use it for anything? So according to Rashi, what the Gemara is asking is, if you're keeping a pikadon for someone, So why would it be your responsibility to make sure that it doesn't get ruined, it doesn't get deteriorated? The person gave it to you to hold on to it, just put it away in a drawer until he comes back. If the owner is concerned about the fact that it gets deteriorated, he didn't tell you anything. Let him come and make sure that it doesn't. But why would you have to do anything with it? That's Rashi's prat. Tosfos says that the Gemara here is actually asking that it's mashma and the Braise that you could do these things, you can use it even for your own sake. But by a pekadon though, for your own sake, why would you be allowed to use it for your sake? So Omer Avad Bar Choma, Omer Av Sheishes, B'Pekadon Sholchu Baleim LeMedina Sayam. It's talking about a pekadon where the owner that gave it to you left overseas, so he's not here available to come and take care of it. So in such a case, even if he didn't tell you clearly, you should take care of it once in a while. Take it out, make sure it doesn't get tarnished, doesn't get ruined. So the same halacha is like an aveda where the owner is gone, he lost it, he goes overseas. You apply the same thing regarding a pekadon. The last halacha, the Mishnah said, Matzah Sakei Kupa. You find a big sack or a big box, or anything that's not your nature to go and drag these things in the street, then you don't have the obligation, the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda. So the Gemara brings a source for this. From where do we see such a thing? That if it's beneath your dignity, it's not your mitzvah to go and do. Because the Tanur Rabbani we learned in the Braise, in the pasuk where it says the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda, it says v'his alamta, salamta mehem. So the simple shot of the pasuk, you read it for his salamta. Would you just turn a blind eye to this aveda that's here? But the pasuk uses this term for salamta. What we learn from this is pa'amim shata misalim. There are times that you're allowed to turn a blind eye to the lost object. And sometimes you're not allowed. Haketzad, when is the case? When there's an aveda and you don't have the mitzvah to return it. If you're a kayin, and the Aveda is in a Beis HaKvaris where a Kayin is not allowed to be Metame himself in the Beis HaKvaris. So then you don't have the mitzvah to go and return it. It's a person that's older and it's a prominent individual and a Talmud Chacham, and it's beneath his dignity to go and schlep such a kind of Aveda. Or the work that this person is doing is very valuable, and for him to stop from his work, the money that he's going to lose to go and return this Aveda, it's not worth it. He's going to lose much more money than what the value of this Aveda is. Therefore, the Torah says in these cases that you may turn a blind eye to the Aveda. So now the Gemara explains, it brought here 3 cases in the Braisa. Regarding which of these cases do you need a special limud from Vesalamta to say that you don't have the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda? So the Gemara for which one of these cases is it necessary to have the special limud from the pasuk? Is it the case of the Kayin and the Aveda is in the Beis HaKvaris? So in such a case, Pshita. It's obvious that the Kayin doesn't have the mitzvah. Why? The mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda is just an essa, and the isser of a Kayin going into the Beis HaKvaris is v'hai lois essa ve'essa. It's both a lois essa and an essa for the Kayin to go into the Beis HaKvaris. So then why would I think that you should push off a lois essa and an essa for the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda? So what the Rashi here brings? What's the essa of Hashavas Aveda? We had it before in the Gemara, Hoshev Teshivein. Right? What's the lois essa and the essa of the Kayin not being allowed to go into the Beis HaKvaris? L'nefesh lo yitama, and also Kedoshim Yiu. So it's a essa and a lois essa. So Rashi here adds that even though regarding Hashavas Aveda, it's also a lois essa, but it doesn't matter because a lois essa doesn't push off another lois essa. The main point of here that it's saying is that usually the klal is an essa pushes off a lois essa. But over here in this case where it's an essa to do Hashavas Aveda and not going to the Beis HaKvaris is an essa and a lois essa, so then why do we need a pasuk to say that you don't have to do the mitzvah? It's obvious that it doesn't push off both this essa and the lois essa. There's a lot of different points here, discussions in Rishonim about this, benigay to what it speaks about here, because when he comes into the Beis HaKvaris, he's not doing the mitzvah of Hashav Teshivim right away. He comes into the Beis HaKvaris, and then only when he picks up the Aveda and returns it, then he's doing the mitzvah. So why is the Gemara even bringing up this whole thing of Esse, the Chalois Esse, and of Eretz Esse, and Alois Esse? He's anyways not doing the mitzvah right away. And other questions, but the Rishonim discuss over here regarding this. Exactly at what point does the mitzvah saseh apply? There's a second question the Gemara asks in this. According to the Ramban, it's the second question, which is the main question of the Gemara. The Gemara asks another question. We have a rule that we never push off any isser because of any money loss that could be. So the mitzvah of a Shabbos Aveda is a mitzvah which is all to prevent the loss of money for the owner that lost this Aveda. And here you have an issue that you're not allowed to walk into the Beis HaKvaris. So the rule is that regardless of the concept of Essa and Lois Essa, you don't push off any mitzvah which is because of a money loss, and any Issa is not pushed off for such a sake. So why would you need a pasuk here to say that you don't have the mitzvah of a Shabbos Aveda for this kain? But it's still nevertheless a mitzvah which is a mammon, which is for loss of money, is not pushed. It doesn't push off any issa. Ella, therefore the Gemara says. So you're right. That case of the Braisa doesn't need any pasuk to say you don't have the mitzvah. Maybe it's the next case that it says, the case where the loss of what you're doing, of the work that you're doing, is more valuable than what the Aveda is. That's what you need a pasuk for. But the Gemara says, for that you don't need a pasuk for either. I mean, the Rav Yudah Amar Rav Nafke. We can learn this out from what Rav Yudah said in the name of Rav. Rav Yudah Amar Rav. Efes ki lo yeh b'cha evyain. That there should be no poor people amongst you. So from the language of this pasuk we learn out, when it says lo yeh b'cha, by you there should be no poverty. Shacha kaidem l'shakal adam. That your own poverty comes before someone else. You don't have to cause yourself to become poor, to lose time of your work because of another person's loss, because of his Aveda. So that doesn't need a pasuk from this salamta either. We learn it out from this pasuk. Elo, the Gemara concludes, l'zakin ve'eino lefich vaydai. The pasuk is needed for the case of the zakin, and it's not his kovid to go and do this mitzvah of Shabbos Aveda. That's the chiddush of this pasuk v'salamta, that the kovid abrius, or the kovid, some Rishonim say, so the zakin is talking about kovid atayre, that the person that's a Talmud Chacham, he doesn't have the mitzvah of Shabbos Aveda. That's the chiddush of v'salamta. Amar Rabbe, but Rabbe said here about this halacha of this zakin that does not have to do the mitzvah of Shabbos Aveda. Hikisha, if this zakin shani lefich vaydai went and hit this animal that was lost, he sees the animal that's lost and he hits it in order to get it to go back to its owner. So he began the mitzvah of Shabbos Aveda just by hitting it. So then chayiv ba, he's going to have the obligation to complete the mitzvah and to see to it that it should be fully returned to its owner. Once he begins the mitzvah, he has to do the mitzvah till the end. And the Gemara brings a story about this. Abai Ava Yosef Kamei de Rabbe. Abai was sitting in front of Rabbe. He saw these goats that were standing. They weren't following their owner, and they got stuck somewhere and they were lost standing in one place. He took a piece of earth or something, and he threw it at these animals that they should move forward, that they should go back to their owner. Once you began making this effort to return these animals to the owner, even though it's not for his covet to go and be busy with returning animals to the owner, but once you began, you have to get up and complete the mitzvah, return the animals completely to their owner. Now, based on this, the Gemara has a shaila, what happens if it's a case where this individual, if it's something out in the field where there aren't many people there, so it is something which is customary for him to go and tend to and return it to the owner. Because out in the field, there's not people there, so he's not embarrassed of going and tending to this Aveda or to this animal to return it. But once you come into the city, amongst people there, and his neighbors, and people see him over here, it's not his derech to go and return an Aveda. So now, what's going to be the halach in such a case? So here, if you have an Aveda that's lost in the field outside, does this zakin have the obligation to go and return it? And the Gemara explains the Ibayah. Do I say hashave ma'al yabinan? The mitzvah of a Shabbos Aveda is to do a proper hashava, to fully return it to the owner. V'kivin the lav darke lahachsa be'ir. So since he can't complete the mitzvah fully to give it back to the owner in the city, because there it's already going to be zaken v'enel v'chvaydai, the conclusion of the mitzvah doesn't apply to him. So then loy l'chayiv. He doesn't have the obligation to even begin the mitzvah. He doesn't have the obligation even in the field to go and tend to it, to start returning it. Or maybe I say the opposite. Basade miyes hu de ichayiv. Like when it's still in the field over there, it is customary for him to do this. Over there, the mitzvah applies to him. Now, once the beginning of the mitzvah applies to him, then he has to conclude the mitzvah even in the city to return it fully to its owner. Based on what we said before, once you began the mitzvah, you have to see it through until the end. You have to finish it off. So maybe here we go according to the fact that in the beginning you were able to do it, so you have to finish it off as well. Teiku, this remains our result. Omar Rav said, The what? A maschel mitzvah like Gemara. Maybe it's related to that, but the Gemara doesn't bring in that Indian there. It's a little bit different. Omar Rava said, Kol shebeshaloi machzer. The rule is anything that, if it was yours, if it was your own, you would go and schlep it through the street and you would bring it back home. So then if it's your friends, you also have to do the mitzvah of a shavas aved and return it to him. We see that this is not below your dignity to do. You're ready to do this for yourself. So you have to do it for your friend as well. And similar regarding the mitzvah of prike and te'ina, we'll have this soon here later in this peirik, the mitzvah of helping a person with his donkey that's loaded with a heavy package, whether to unload it, whether to load it. So over there also, the pasuk uses a similar term, v'hisalamta, that if it's a zak nishayna lefi chvaydai, you don't have the mitzvah. But so if it was something that you would do it with your own donkey, that you would load it or unload it, then you have the obligation to do it for your friend as well. So what we see from this Gemara is that really this concept of zaken v'enel v'chvaydai is not limited dafka to a zaken. There's this rule over here of you look at whether you would do this for yourself. Elamad, the Gemara before uses the term of zaken v'enel v'chvaydai because that's over there we could assume the zaken, it's on a level that we could assume that it's not on his level, it's not as covered. The Gemara brings a story in connection to this. Rabbi Shmuel, but Rabbi Yosi have a cause of borche. Rabbi Shmuel, but Rabbi Yosi was going on his way. And he encountered a person that was carrying something. He was carrying a load of wood. He sat down and he was resting. So he says to Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yosi, Dolili, help me load up this load of wood. So Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi tells him, Amalei, kamashoven, what's the value of this wood that you're carrying? Amalei, palga de zuzi, it's worth a half a zuz. So Yavle Palga the Zuzi, Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi did not want to help him, do the mitzvah, help him out. He was a zaken shenel of yichvaydai. So he gave him a half a zuz and va'afkara. And he just declared it hefker and says, forget about it. I gave you the value of it and you just leave it here. So this person, hadar zachabu, it's hefker. So he went and he acquired it back. It's hefker, so he can take it back for itself. And now he turned again to Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi and says, look, I have this load of wood here. Help me load it. So Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi says to him again, he gave him another half a zuz, and he was mafkir a second time, and told the person, forget about it. I'm not helping you, leave it here. Chazir, Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi saw that this person is going to possess it again, and again try to obligate Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi to do the mitzvah to help him out. Amalei, so Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi immediately announced, L'kula alma afkirinu, I declare it hefker for anybody else to acquire, but v'locha lo afkirinu. But for you, it's not hefker for you. You can't acquire it. So you can't do this a third time to Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi. So the Gemara asks regarding what Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi did here. He declared it a selective hefker. Is there such a concept? Could you declare something hefker when it's not hefker for everybody? But Vatnan, there's a Mishnah in Nedarim where it says, or actually this is in Peah. The Mishnah in Peah says regarding Hefker, Beishamai Yaimrim, Beishamai say, Hefker laniyim Hefker. If you declare something Hefker just for poor people, how's the halacha of Hefker? And the relevance of it being Hefker is, regarding what the Mishnah speaks there, is for the Maisris. It's Hefker just for Aniyim, you put it to give Maisris from this produce. Beisil say, no, in order for it to be hefker, to be potted from Meiser, you have to declare it hefker for everybody, for poor people, for rich people. Kishmitte, like the halacha of Shmitte, when it's totally hefker and you potted from Meiser. So the question is, how did Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi declare it hefker and excluding this individual? So the Gemara says, Allah, the answer is Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi, l'kula alma afkirinu. Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi declared it hefker for everybody. Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi just said these words that it's not hefker for you in order for this person to think that he can't possess it again, so he shouldn't make Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi come and help him. That's the end of the story. But now the Gemara asks on the story, why did Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi have to go through this effort to give him a half a zuz and again a half a zuz and declare it hefker in order not to have to help this person load up this wood that he was carrying with him? Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi is that individual that's on the level of a zaken, and it's not for his honor to do this. So why did he have to do this at all? Answers the Gemara, Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi, Lifnim, Meshuris Adinu Davad. What Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yosi did was Lifnim, Meshuris Adin, beyond the letter of the law. So somebody Shainim actually say about this that what you see from this Gemara is that a zaken venel of chvaydai is there's the inyan lefnim shuras adin that he should help out and he should return an aveda. But other Rishonim say that what you see from this Gemara is that even a zaken venel of chvaydai that does lefnim shuras adin, he shouldn't actually go and help and go and return the aveda because that's not lefi chvaydai. It could be even against the covet of the Torah. He's a Talmud Chacham, but he should do what Rabbi Shmuel Bar Rabbi Yossi did. Pay him off the value of that Aveda, and you won't have to do the mitzvah. The Gemara brings a source for this. The Tani Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef taught about the concept of Lefnim Mishuras Adin. It says in the pasuk, "V'idait alehem," that you should let know that for them. In the pasuk, in the beginning of the pasuk, there it says, "V'hizharta esam esachukim v'satayres." You should teach them, teach your children, teach them the chukim, all the mitzvahs and Torah. So then when it adds afterwards, you should let them know the way. What kind of way is this? It already says Torah mitzvahs. What this refers to is you have to teach your children also a way of to make a living. You have to teach them a craft to be able to make a living. Then when it says esaderech, so besides vaydaitelem, derech refers to gemilas chasadim. Then it says yechu, going where is a bikkur chaylim. This refers to the mitzvah of bikkur chaylim. Ba, going in it, zukvura. That refers to burying. Ba is a kind of a gemilas chasadim. Ba, that you don't get anything in return from the person that you buried. So it says ba, this is it. Then it says maise ze'adin. That's justice when you paskin a din in Bezdin. And then it says asher yasun. The extra words of asher yasun is zuluf nimishuras adin. That you go even beyond the letter of the law, even though the Bezdin doesn't paskin, doesn't require you to do beyond the letter of the law, but nevertheless you should do lifnim mishuras adin. Gemara explains now the details of what it said here in this brayse. Amar, we learned from this pasuk that yelchu ze bikkur chaylim. When it says Yelchu, it refers to Bikkur Chaylim. But the question is, why do we need a pasuk that's teaching specifically the detail of visiting the sick? Isn't that included in Gemilas Chasadim, an act of kindness to go and visit someone that's sick? And says the Gemara, we need this in a case where you're visiting someone that's your Ben Gil, someone that's your age, or someone that's even maybe born on your day, he's born on your mazel. And in such a case, when you visit him, when you visit someone and he's the same Ben Giloi as you, is the same mazel as you, so then you take from him and you contract, you have now a 60th of his illness. Even in such a case, you should also go and visit him. No, you take. Naitel means that you take, that the person gets the, you acquire it, you get it. Yeah, so therefore you may think in such a case you shouldn't go and visit him. And therefore it says here that you still should go and visit him. Then when it said ba, that you have, which ba is zukvura, that you should do burial. In fact, the Gemara again, Hainu Gemilas Chasadim. It's also a form of Gemilas Chasadim. Why is it a special pasuk for this? And says the Gemara, here it's saying that even though it's not for the honor of this zaken, still he should do the mitzvah of kvura. Then it said that you should go even beyond the letter of the law. So Rabbi Yochanan said about this, Yerushalayim was only destroyed, Ela al Shadona Badin Teira. It's because they paskin according to the dinim of the Torah. Now, what does he mean to say? Ela dinidim magista ledaino. So they should not paskin according to Torah. They should paskin like the magista. Magista were those that Rashi says guzoi. They were people that forced people to accept their judgment, and they were very, very vicious about it. Tyranny with tyranny. So paskin al Torah is the best thing. The pshat over here is the people accepted the psak of the Bezdin and they didn't bother going beyond the letter of the law. And Taisus over here adds that over here, Rabbi Yochanan says that this is why Yerushalayim was destroyed, but in other places it says that Yerushalayim was destroyed for sinas chinams. Taisus says it's both of these things. Okay, the next plot is very long. Let's finish off a little bit more over here from this plot. What is considered to be a lost object? You see something, maybe the owner left it there and he's aware of it and it's not lost. At what point could you say that you know it's lost? So the Mishnah says, you find a donkey or a cow, they're just grazing along the way. You don't know yet that it's lost. The owner knows of it here. So you don't have to return it. You see a donkey and its dishes or vessels that it was carrying, hafuchin, are turned over, or this maybe refers to the yoke or the saddle that it has that are turned over, or you see a cow that's just running wildly in a vineyard, then you know that the owner lost it, and therefore this cow there is hurting itself, and so you have to return it. Now, hechzira o barcha, you return this animal and it runs away from its master again. Hechzira o barcha, runs away again. Afila arba v'chamisha pamim, 4 times, 5 times, chayiv lachzira. You have the mitzvah to return it to the owner. Shenem, as the pasuk says, hashev teshivim, that you have to return it again and again. So the Mishnah, haya batal misela. A person is doing work, and now there's an aveda that he encounters, and he can do the mitzvah of a shavas aveda. And to do that shavas aveda, what happens? Yeah, you gave up from your time of work, and you're losing the value of a sela. You can't turn out to the person that you returned his aveda to him, tenli sela, reimburse me for the loss of a sela of my work. Ella naisun loischarai kepoil. The person that you returned the aveda to him, he pays you for the value of the work of what you did to return the aveda, which is probably a value that's much less, just to go and pick it up and return it. He pays you for the value of that work, not the value of the loss of the sela that you lost from your work. Now, im yesham bezdin, if there's a bezdin, you have 3 people. You can form a bezdin, then masne b'fnei bezdin. You make this condition in front of the bezdin, and you tell them that I'm only returning the aveda on condition that the owner will reimburse me for the loss of the sela of my work. Now, mein sham bezdin b'fnei miyasne. If you don't have 3 people, if you don't have a bezdin that you can make this condition that you're only doing the shavas aveda if you're going to be reimbursed, then shaloi kaidim. Your work comes first, and you don't have to go and return this aveda. Huh? In a case where the person just goes and takes it without, he just didn't make up anything, and he just went. He did it anyways. So and then he comes afterwards. He comes to ask the owner to reimburse him. So then he doesn't have to give him the full value of his work. Zok the Gemara, what did it say in the Mishnah here? What is an aveda? So the Gemara asks on this expression of the Mishnah. All the Mishnayos of this Perek previously, that we mentioned different examples of avedas, those are not considered to be an aveda. Dafke, what it says here in this Mishnah, this is the aveda. So this is what our Mishnah is saying. It's not excluding all other avedas. Rather, what it's saying is, regarding this situation of an animal, what is a rule how we can determine whether it's lost or not? If it's just grazing along the way, it's not an aveda. There's no obligation to return it. This, you can be sure that the owner lost it, and you're obligated to return it, as the Mishnah said. But now the Gemara asks on this, if you see an ox or you see a donkey that's just grazing along the way, you see it one day, another day, you see it there after a week, after 2 weeks, forever you're going to say that the owner is aware of this and you don't have to return it. At a certain point, it probably is lost. The Mishnah was talking about 3 days. So the Gemara asks on this amount of exactly 3 days. Why 3 days? Hey, Chidami, what are we talking about over here? If you see that this animal is grazing out in the field or in the street at nighttime, even for just 1 moment, if no one leaves these animals out at night, so right away you should know that it's lost. If it's daytime, then during the day, the animal is always out during the day they're grazing. So why just 3 days? Even a longer period of time, you shouldn't consider it to be lost. So the Gemara explains what Rav Yehuda was talking about. The case Rav Yehuda gave this shear of 3 days. The case is the Hava Chazillah. He sees this animal that's grazing outside B'Kadmasa early, very early in the morning, before Aloisa Shachar, when it's just becoming light outside, or B'Chashechta, and at night when it's just about becoming dark. So over here I say, if you see this for 3 days, it could happen that the owner went out early, let his animal go out early, or let it out a little bit late, and it went out. But more than 3 days, then definitely it's an aveda. So the share of 3 days is specifically regarding this time period of the day. The Gemara brings a source for this from a Braisa as well. The shear of 3 days. Tanya Namihachi, we learned in a Braisa, Matzah Talis Akardim. You find a garment or you find an axe, Ve'esratia, middle of a big street, Upara Ratza ben Akramim, or you see a cow that's running between a vineyard and it's getting all hurt. Hareza Aveda. You can assume that the owner lost it. Talis, b'tzad geder, you see a garment that's put away nicely at the side of a gate or of a wall, and it seems like it was put there intentionally. Kardim b'tzad geder, or axe that's put there nicely on the side near a wall, or upar roya ben akramim, and a cow that's not running, but it's just walking between the vineyards. Then we know that it's not lost. Gimel Yomim, Zeh Chazeh, if you see this cow, the 3 days, one after the other, then it is Aveda. Then you could assume that it got lost because, as we said before, and this is talking like Rabbi Yehuda explained, whether early in the morning or in the evening, that after 3 days, the owner lost it there. Now that Allah, this Brisa says, Ra Mayim Sheshaitfim Uboin, if you see that there's a flood of water that's about to come and flood someone's property, a mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda also means that you should put up a fence or you should put up a dam, something to stop the water of coming and flooding someone's property.